Golden State's backcourt depth chart just got a little thinner. Pat Spencer, the undersized guard who carved out a surprising NBA role after 3 years bouncing between the G League and the Warriors' rotation, is heading to a division rival. According to ESPN insider Shams Charania, Spencer has agreed to a two-way contract with the Phoenix Suns, officially closing the book on his time in the Bay Area. Hey, what's up, everyone? Before we jump into everything today, that like button right there is what decides if this video hits hundreds or thousands of people. 1 second is all it takes. But the impact on this channel is massive. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Seriously, it's the simplest thing you can do. And honestly, the best way to back this content up, because every single like pushes us further. So hit it now. Spencer's path to this point was anything but conventional. He first put on a Warriors-affiliated jersey with the Santa Cruz G League club back in 2022, grinding through anonymous minutes in front of sparse crowds long before anyone outside the organization knew his name. He finally got his shot at NBA minutes late in the 2023-24 campaign, appearing in a handful of games before being trusted with 39 appearances the following season. Last year, his third with the franchise, he broke out in a way few saw coming. 66 games played, 7.2 points, and 3.5 assists a night, numbers that turn a fringe roster afterthought into a legitimate rotation piece. What makes the achievement even more remarkable is Spencer's background. He didn't grow up as a basketball lifer grinding through AAU circuits and blue-chip recruiting rankings. Instead, he spent 4 years as a lacrosse standout at Loyola before using a single graduate season of college basketball at Northwestern as a springboard to professional ball. Making an NBA roster off that kind of resume, let alone sticking around for 3 seasons, is the type of story that doesn't happen very often. Whatever happens next in Phoenix, Spencer has already proven doubters wrong once. Golden State fans invested in his journey should feel good about how it played out, but the front office's decision not to bring him back speaks to where the roster is heading. The Warriors have other guards they view as having more long-term upside, and the numbers back that up. Chief among them is L.J. Cryer, a 24-year-old who is 5 years younger than Spencer and, on paper, offers more shooting equity. In 18 NBA outings last season, Cryer connected on 39.4% of his three-point attempts on real volume, the kind of efficiency that suggests his shooting translates rather than being a small sample mirage. Golden State has him locked in on a two-way deal again this season, and the expectation is he'll follow a blueprint similar to the one Spencer used. Prove himself in limited minutes, then push for a promotion to a standard NBA contract if the production holds up as the year progresses. The bigger structural question the Spencer departure highlights isn't about replacing his specific skill set. It's about who runs a point when Stephen Curry sits. Cryer profiles more as a combo guard capable of scoring in bursts rather than a true table setter. The same goes for Brandon Podziemski and D'Anthony Melton, both of whom can initiate offense in stretches but aren't classic pass-first floor generals. As things stand, Golden State doesn't have a natural backup point guard on the roster, and that gap hasn't gone unnoticed around the league. The Warriors have already been connected to at least one outside option, Brandon Williams, who put up 13.0 points a game for the Mavericks last season and offers a change of pace scoring punch off the bench. But beyond Williams, the free agent point guard market this summer isn't exactly bursting with impact options, which is part why Golden State hasn't rushed to fill the void. There's a simpler explanation for why the front office might be comfortable waiting. The roster can function without a true backup point guard if Podziemski and Melton continue splitting those secondary ball-handling duties whenever Curry catches a breather. It's not the tittiest long-term solution, but it's workable, especially if the Warriors are saving cap flexibility for a much bigger swing. That bigger swing, of course, is LeBron James. Landing him would solve the playmaking question in one stroke, given his ability to run an offense at an elite level even in the twilight of his career. The problem is that nobody, including rival executives monitoring the situation closely, has a clear read on where James is leaning. That uncertainty has already caused Golden State chances at other targets. 2 names near the top of their offseason guard wish list, Colin Sexton and Anthony Simons, have both signed elsewhere while the front office waited on James to make a decision. If the Warriors ultimately miss out on James, the fallback plan is straightforward. Bring in a proven point guard willing to sign for the veteran minimum. Names being floated around the league include Russell Westbrook, Aaron Holiday, Gabe Vincent, Jordan McLaughlin, and Jalen Pickett. A mix of past playoff performers and steady, low-usage facilitators who could stabilize a second unit without costing significant money. For now, though, the story is Spencer moving on to a conference rival, closing an improbable chapter that started with lacrosse sticks and G League bus rides and ended with real NBA minutes. Golden State will keep developing Cryer as his heir apparent, while it continues to sort out its bigger off-season priorities. Chief among them the answer to the LeBron James sweepstakes that could reshape everything else on the roster. Jonathan Kuminga's next chapter might play out in purple and gold. After a rocky 4.5-year run with Golden State, followed by a half-season stint with the Atlanta Hawks, Kuminga has hit unrestricted free agency for first time in his career, and one of the league's marquee franchises is reportedly circling. The Athletic's Dan Woik reported that the Los Angeles Lakers view Kuminga as a fit because the team is still hunting for a young wing who can hold up on the perimeter defensively. If Los Angeles lands him, Golden State will be seeing a familiar face 4 times a season for years to come, this time wearing the jersey of one of its fiercest rivals. On paper, the Lakers make plenty of sense as a landing spot. Los Angeles already has 2 dynamic guards running the show in Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, plus a rim-protecting anchor at center in Walker Kessler. What the roster lacks is a true difference-maker on the wing. Quentin Grimes currently profiles as a starting option there, with Sandro Mammikalashvili capable of sliding over in a pinch. But Mammikalashvili is really a stretch power forward playing out of position rather than a natural wing defender. Both Grimes and Mammikalashvili shoot the ball better than Kuminga does at this stage of his career, but neither has his combination of size, length, and vertical explosiveness. Kuminga's calling card has always been his ability to attack downhill, finish above the rim as a cutter, and pressure the paint as a roll man. Qualities that translate especially well next to a gravity-bending passer like Doncic. Playing alongside Doncic and Reeves would also mean Kuminga spends fewer possessions as the focal point of opposing defenses, since both those guards draw so much defensive attention on their own. Stepping back from a fit question, it's worth revisiting how we got here. Golden State moved on from Kuminga as part of the trade that brought back Kristaps Porzingis, sending out both Kuminga and Buddy Hield in the process. At the time, plenty of analysts predicted Kuminga would immediately blossom into a star elsewhere, turning the deal into a regrettable mistake for the front office. That prediction hasn't aged particularly well. Atlanta, the team that ultimately took on Kuminga's rights, declined to pick up his $24.3 million team option, a decision that speaks volumes about how the organization actually valued his long-term upside despite the flashes of talent he showed. Kuminga is still only 23 years old, so it's not as if his developmental window has closed. He'll land a real contract somewhere this offseason and has time to keep growing. But unlocking a genuine star trajectory will require a significant leap in his ball handling and perimeter shooting, 2 areas that have lagged behind his elite physical tools throughout his career so far. Barring that kind of jump, the more realistic outcome is that Kuminga settles in as a solid rotation piece, a fringe starter capable of defending multiple perimeter positions on his best nights and getting to 20-plus points by attacking downhill and finishing through contact. That's a legitimately useful player to have, no question. But it's also roughly comparable in value to what Golden State currently gets from Porzingis, the centerpiece the Warriors received in the trade that sent Kuminga away in the first place. Porzingis, listed at 7'2", is a significantly better scorer than Kuminga, but a clear downgrade defensively, and his medical history remains a real concern. Durability and health questions have followed him for years. Kuminga has dealt with his own share of injuries, but the expectation going forward is that he should be a more consistently available player than Porzingis over a full season. Had Kuminga blown up with the Hawks and cashed in on a major long-term deal there this summer, it's fair to think Golden State's front office might be second-guessing the trade right now. Instead, the muted market reaction and Atlanta's decision to let him walk rather than commit to an 8-figure option have, if anything, validated the calculus behind the original move for Steve Kerr and the rest of the Warriors' decision-makers. None of that changes the reality that Kuminga will now be a frequent opponent rather than a teammate. If the Lakers do complete a deal, Golden State will face him in the regular season rotation at least 4 times, adding another layer of intrigue to an already loaded Pacific Division. For a fan base that watched Kuminga develop from a raw lottery pick into a rotation caliber wing, seeing him potentially resurface in a Lakers uniform will make those matchups carry extra weight, even if the broader verdict on the original trade continues to favor Golden State. There's also a broader storyline worth watching: how the rest of the free agent wing market reacts once Kuminga's market clarifies. Teams that missed out on bigger names early in free agency could view him as a value play, betting on the athletic upside even without a finished offensive skill set. The Lakers' reported interest may not be the only offer on the table, and Kuminga's camp will likely weigh factors beyond fit alone, including role certainty and the chance to start full-time somewhere with less star competition. Whatever happens, it's a storyline Golden State fans will want to track, since it shapes how often these two rivals collide going forward. Every team chasing LeBron James this summer is bumping into the same wall. None of them have real cap space left to offer him. But a closer look at what each suitor can actually put on the table shows Golden State's pitch stacks up better than most people realize. The Warriors can offer James a full non-taxpayer mid-level exception, worth roughly $15 million. That number might sound modest for a player of James' stature, but in a league where nearly every contender is capped out, it's actually one of the stronger offers available to him anywhere. Golden State enters this stretch of free agency with 10 players already under contract and a payroll sitting around $182.8 million. Using the full mid-level exception on James would leave very little breathing room to also take care of Draymond Green's contract situation, which is why front office chatter suggests it might take moving Moses Moody or Kristaps Porzingis to make the numbers work cleanly. Trading Moody, in particular, is viewed as a relatively straightforward path if the Warriors need to create the extra flexibility. Golden State isn't alone at the top of the exception tier. The Detroit Pistons can also offer James a full mid-level exception, though their cap sheet carries its own complications. Detroit still needs to sort out a new contract for restricted free agent Jalen Duren, but the team reportedly has enough flexibility to both pay Duren appropriately and still have the full exception available for James afterward. One rung below the top tier sits the Miami Heat, who can offer James a partial version of the mid-level exception. Miami already used a chunk of that exception to sign Tim Hardaway Jr. to a one-year, $6.5 million contract, which leaves roughly $8.5 million remaining. Using the entire remaining balance would push Miami right up against the first tax apron. So in practical terms, their real offer to James is probably a bit lower than that $8.5 million ceiling. A tier below their teams limited to the taxpayer mid-level exception, worth about $6.1 million. The Minnesota Timberwolves fall into this group, and the Athletic's John Krasinski reported that Minnesota has actually reached out to gauge James' interest in joining the franchise, though the same report noted the Timberwolves don't view themselves as legitimate frontrunners for him. The New York Knicks also sit in this tier. James has flirted with the idea of playing in New York before, but there's a reasonable case he'd rather avoid the backlash that could come with joining the reigning champions, a situation not unlike the reaction Kevin Durant faced when he joined Golden State back in 2016. Further down the ladder are teams that can only offer the biannual exception, worth around $5.5 million. The San Antonio Spurs technically qualify here after using their full mid-level exception to sign Tobias Harris, though a report from the Stein Line's Mark Stein indicated the Spurs don't plan to pursue James seriously. The Boston Celtics also land in this tier. An earlier trade that sent Jaylen Brown out for Paul George saved Boston roughly $3 million, which makes fitting James in with a biannual exception somewhat easy logistically, even if there's no strong indication the two sides are connected. At the bottom of the financial hierarchy are teams that can only offer the veteran minimum, worth about $3.9 million. The Denver Nuggets fall into this category, but that hasn't stopped speculation about the fit. Pairing James with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Aaron Gordon would create a genuinely frightening starting five, even at a bargain price. The Philadelphia 76ers moved into the same tier after committing a 2-year, $12.3 million contract to Anthony Simons, leaving them with only minimum-level money for James. Philadelphia still makes some sense as a dark horse suitor given their mix of talent and their lack of recent playoff breakthroughs. A title would be their first since Moses Malone anchored the franchise back in 1983, and James' join could be framed as the missing piece to finally get there. Then there's Cleveland, whose situation remains genuinely unresolved. The Cavaliers currently have 12 players under contract for about $183.3 million. If free agent guard James Harden ultimately signs for a modest $10.6 million, Cleveland would have access to the full mid-level exception for James. But if Harden's number climbs past $35 million instead, the Cavaliers will be left with nothing more than a veteran minimum offer. That uncertainty has fueled speculation that Cleveland could explore trading Max Struss or Dennis Schroeder to clear additional room, though nothing concrete has emerged yet. Until Harden's situation is settled, it's impossible to say definitively where the Cavaliers fall on this list. Taken together, the picture is clear. James isn't walking into a market full of max-level offers this summer. Nearly every realistic contender is working with some form of exception rather than true cap space, and Golden State's full mid-level slot puts the Warriors solidly in the top-tier teams that can make a real financial pitch, even if roster jockeying behind the scenes will be required to actually clear the necessary room.